Hi there, welcome to the archives. So I wanted to just quickly get on here and talk about lying. I just saw a post that was talking about like it's not that people don't lie people lie to you not because they don't care about hurting your feelings, but because they're trying to protect their own self-interest, right? Let me just close this. So I asked, I'm gonna bring out Bell Hooks. This is my favorite book. Literally one of my favorite books of life ever. Sisters of the Yam. This is my own copy. One of my favorite books. I had a best friend that introduced me to this book years and years ago. I think she bought it for me, actually. Yeah. This is a gift. This was a gift in 2007. From Kenesha. December 2007. So it was a Christmas gift, I think. She said, keep nourishing your mind. Knowledge is power. I just did a previous video on Black feminism, and that's what I was saying. Please keep reading because knowledge is power. I love that. I was feeling to bring out bell hooks today. I was gonna do all about love, but Sisters of the Yam was on my heart. I love this book, not to say it's more or less, but like this is literally one of my favorite books of all time. Sisters of the Yam, Black Women in Self-Recovery by Bell Hooks. So she said, keep nourishing your mind. Knowledge is power. Love, Kenesha. And yes, knowledge is power. But I've been thinking about lying. Speaking of cancers. Sorry, my bad. Speaking of... Anyways, chapter 1. Chapter 1 is about seeking after truth. So I've been thinking about lies and lying and omission. There's that quote that says a half-truth is a full lie. And I definitely believe that, right? And so I've been thinking about lying and truth-telling. And I asked Gemini, why do humans lie? And the response was, humans lie for a complex array of reasons, driven by a combination of evolutionary pressures, psychological needs, and social dynamics. It's a pervasive behavior, with research suggesting that most adults tell at least one lie a day, and some individuals lie much more frequently. So here's a breakdown of why humans lie: self-preservation and gaining advantage. Right? Avoiding punishment and negative consequences. This is arguably the most common motivator, especially in children. But remember, a lot of adults are also children, right? We don't actually really, we grow, we age, but some of us, the growth is a little bit, myself included, right? I can be very, very mature, and that's something I work on. But it persists into adulthood. Whether it's to avoid a speeding ticket, getting grounded, or losing a job, people lie to escape repercussions. We lie as self-protection and privacy. Lies can be used to protect oneself from harm, embarrassment, or to maintain a sense of privacy. For instance, a child might lie about who they were talking to on the phone to avoid parental scrutiny. That also, teach your kids not to lie. Or adults also, I saw a video that was telling it, like, don't tell kids to lie. Right? Because that often can lead into like if there's a sexual assault, for instance, and then they're afraid to tell adults and they don't want to come and disclose it. So that can be really dangerous, that example. Obtaining reward or benefits. People may lie to gain something they desire, such as a promotion, a higher grade, or a financial advantage, even if it requires less effort than honesty. Lying is way easier than being honest. I think people think, like, especially when you're an honest person, they think it's like the easiest thing. Being honest is actually, especially when our society punishes us for being honest. I'm going to get into that with bell hooks. Impression management, self-enhancement, right? We often lie to make ourselves look better, more competent, or more likable, and to maintain control. Lying can give a person a perceived sense of control over a situation by manipulating information. It can be a defense mechanism to avoid vulnerability or revealing one's true self. There's others, it goes into like social and relational reasons. We lie to avoid conflict and discomfort. White lies, right? People lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings. The post I said was like, actually has nothing to do with their feelings. It goes back to control and self-protection, right? To prevent awkward social situations or to maintain peace and harmony in a relationship, to protect others. Sometimes people lie to protect someone they care about from harm, embarrassment, or disappointment. Maintaining a relationship. While lying could erode trust, paradoxically, some lies are told to preserve relationships, which is what the post was saying. Like they didn't lie to not hurt your feelings. They lied because they knew that it would come with consequences, right? You might leave. I just saw Yolo Akili talk about conflict and how conflict does not mean the absence of care. I just saw their Instagram video, and I think that's part of it, right? Sometimes we're afraid to like hurt people's feelings. We're afraid that in conflict, what did Yolo say? Either if I tell this thing, people will either abandon me or blow up on me. That was what Yola was saying in their post, and that can be really true, right? We avoid conflict because we don't want people to abandon us, we don't want people to leave us, and we don't want them to like blow up on us. I'm gonna bring it to Bell Hooks. So Bell Hooks says, a culture of domination, which is what we often live in, right? Dominator culture, patriarchy, men dominate women, heterosexuals dominate queer people, like this domination, right? I am. I talked about that a couple things ago. A culture of domination is necessarily a culture where lying is an acceptable social norm. It's really common to lie. Not only like it's a socially acceptable norm. In fact, it is required. Bell Hooks write, white folks knew that they were lying about African slaves who labored from sun up to sundown when they then told the world that those same slaves were lazy. White supremacy has always relied upon a structure of deceit to perpetuate degrading racial stereotypes, myths that black people are inferior, more animalistic. Within the colonizing process, black people were socialized to believe that survival was possible only if they learned how to deceive. So it's a survival strategy, right? Those who are very deceptive, actually, if you look at who runs the world, who's on top, they typically do very well. Liars, pathological liars, do very, very well in our society because they know how to play the game, they know what masks to put on, they know, right? And indeed, that is often the case. Slaves often told lies to white oppressors to keep from being brutally punished or murdered. They learned the art of hiding behind a false appearance could be useful when dealing with the white master and mistress. Skillful lying could protect one's safety, could help one gain access to greater resources, or make resistance possible. Slave narratives testify that the ability to deceive was required for survival, right? Again, deception was required for survival. Hi, Arya. Oh, she isn't. Okay. So I'm not gonna get into a whole long thing, but another reader of slave narratives knows that religious black folks expressed anger and rage when they were forced by oppressive social circumstances to commit the sin of lying. Slaves expressed righteous indignation that oppressive white people created dehumanizing social structure where truth-telling could be valued but not practiced, and where black people were judged inferior because of their inability to be truthful, right? And I think that's often which is why a lot of people lie, right? Because those in positions of power will look down at truth tellers as like losers, right? Like, why would you tell the truth? I see that all the time, especially right now. And it's really sad to see Gen Z picking up some of that same thing. But again, if it's for survival, then it does make sense. But I see that often a lot, right? In a dominator culture, hi, Ayura, lying is seen as the thing to do, right? You want to make it, you got to lie. You got to be deceptive. You have to deceive people. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but again, what are your thoughts on lying, right? Do you lie? Do you lie to self-protect yourself? What are your reasons for lying? Is Gemini right? Cognitive efficiency, in some cases self-deception. We lie to ourselves. Lying by omission or filter out detailed information for efficiency. The thrill of deception. Some people just enjoy it, right? For some reason, People just get a thrill out of it. It gives them power. They derive power from lying. Evolutionary perspectives. From an evolutionary standpoint, deception is not unique to humans. Many species employ camouflage, mimicry, and other forms of trickery to survive. The ability to deceive can be seen as an adaptive trait that enhances an individual species' chances of obtaining resources, avoiding predators, and attracting mates. In humans, for instance, like play fool for catch wise, right? That's something that I had to do. But again, that was a survival strategy. I think something is going on here. You guys are all telling me it's not. So let me just play fool. Let me just play fool and see what's going on. That is a form of deception, right? That I have to recognize and own up to, right? Again, but that is also out of survival. And I think that's my whole point, is if we weren't put in these structures that required us to use lying as a tool of survival, as a tactic to like control others, to manipulate others, to get ahead, I think more of us would not lie, because we wouldn't need to lie. You wouldn't need to deceive somebody if you knew that they were coming at you honestly, right? While lying is often viewed negatively from an ethical standpoint, its prevalent and diverse motivations highlight its complex role in human psychology and social interaction. Humans are complex, right? We don't like truth tellers. We punish truth tellers, right? Look at what they did to Malcolm X, for instance. Look at those who critique the Bible or Christianity, or those who are saying, actually, you lied to us about the seahorse. You lied to us that males can't be pregnant. That was a lie, right? You lied to us that our indigenous folks weren't queer and trans. That was a lie. Like, people really don't like the truth, and so a lot of us have adopted lying as a way of life. And I just ask that we question that, right? But at the same time, like Bell Hooks says, like Gemini says, it does come with some sort of survival techniques. And so I would love for us to live in a world where we didn't need to just deceive each other to get along, or to, I don't know, it's not even getting us along, right? But I've been thinking about lying. Sisters of the Yam, if you have not read it, please read it. It is my favorite, one of my favorite all-time books in the entire world. It was originally released in 1994. Sisters of the Yam, Black Women in Self-Recovery, won generous critical praise and solidified Bell Hooks' reputation as one of the leading public intellectuals of her generation. 10 years later, the book has emerged firmly as a classic in African American and feminist studies. This is a South End Press Classic Edition. She examines the emotional health of Black women, is wounded by daily assaults of racism and sexism, exploring such central issues as work, beauty, trauma, addiction, eroticism, estrangement from nature. Hooks elucidates numerous strategies for self-recovery and healing. Reminiscent of Frantz Fanon's, I was actually thinking about bringing out Frantz Fanon's A Dying Colonialism. I'm going to do that next because I want to talk about, there's a part, I just took it out. I decided to do this one instead, but Frantz Fanon, which is why it's connected, because it influenced this book. Its studies of psychological effects, Hooks calls upon personal experience and years of study to draw a map for Black women's self-empowerment and collective liberation. So if you haven't read it, please read it. It's a great book. Again, this was a gift that I got back in 2007, I think it was. So, like Kanisha says, keep nourishing your mind, because knowledge is power, okay? Let's just be more honest with each other, can we, please? Thank you. Until next time.